Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of Two Old Guys. I'm John Foster, and my partner is...
I'm the other old guy. My name is Gordy Caverly. Welcome.
This being our fifth episode, we've been kind of on sabbatical for a while because of the pandemic and a few other things that took place over the last year, and one of which we're going to talk about tonight. Gordy, through the pandemic, contracted COVID, and I've asked him to kind of run through his experience with that, starting from how he contracted it, what the symptoms were, and obviously through the whole thing to the end result and where we're at today. So with that right now, I'm going to turn that over to Gordy. When we're done with that, hopefully we'll be able to move into some other topics, but I haven't seen anybody really talk about COVID in that kind of depth. So I thought maybe it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about your total experience.
Certainly, and we can do Q&A as we go along and stuff like that. But I've always been somewhat athletic, and one of the things I've done is I've done a lot of swimming, and I'll tie this into how this has helped me deal with COVID. But March of 2021, I mean, ever since COVID started, I was traveling all over the place. I didn't have any fear of catching COVID. And I'm 74, and I'm in that age bracket where they tell you, beware. And I just figured I was almost impervious, but I've always said that if I die someday, it's going to be a respiratory attack. I could just feel that my respiratory was not necessarily up. That's why I've done a lot of swimming. Before COVID, I was swimming 3 miles a week. I'd swim quarter miles in about 8.5 minutes to 9 minutes. And in March, I'm traveling all over the place. I was Florida a couple of times, and Pennsylvania once, and probably South Carolina. And what really took place is I was doing fine, but I came into the office, and my secretary was not feeling good. She was sick, and she lives with her daughters. And come to find out, long story short, she had COVID, and she gave it to everybody in the office. And I had some young people in the office and some old people in the office, and I started dealing with it. In the first week, I still had pretty high energy, and I figured my system was fighting it off. The second week, I began to crash, extreme crash. Energy level is going down to what I would perceive for me as zero. And what I mean by that, I had to go home. I couldn't work anymore, couldn't focus, I couldn't concentrate. I was probably sleeping 23 hours a day, 22 hours, 21. And when I was up, I was basically non-functional, kind of sitting there like, oh boy, is this fun. So trying everything underneath the sun. And eventually, one morning I just got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I told my wife, I said, I'm going to emergency. I said, if I don't go to emergency, I said, you probably ain't going to see me anymore because this is not good. I listen to my body quite a bit, and everybody should. And I know when it's trying to shut down. And it was trying to shut down. So I just said I needed help, and I got to get there. So the ambulance came, and that was pretty dramatic because the wife watches you walk away, and you can't go to the hospital. You can't call them. You can't talk to them. You got your cell phone and FaceTime, and that is all you got right there. And no one can come up on the COVID floor. And when I went in the hospital, I found out later time, when I went there, my lungs were 60% full, and I was not functioning well. And I went on to 65% supplemental oxygen on what's called a high pressure flow mask, because a low pressure flow mask would not provide sufficient oxygen for me to basically stay alive.
And a CPAP on steroids?
A CPAP on steroids, yeah. Absolutely. You're sitting there and you go, whoa. Yeah, I mean, you're like a scuba mask with the high pressure hose on you. And I was always in good spirits, and I had a a roommate that was 12 years younger than me and in there a week before me, and he was struggling with it. And every day was a bout. It was the same thing. You had medicine 4 times a day, and you had medicine 4 times at night. So they come in and check you about 8 times a day, about every 3 to 4 hours. They took your blood pressure and check your oxygen pulse and the oxygen level in your system. And when I first went in, my oxygen was probably, I'd say down around 80 to 86. And they said below 89, you got to be in the hospital and getting supplemental oxygen. So I struggle like that. So one of the criteria for getting out of the hospital, if you decide that you're healthy enough to get out, is you have to have an oxygen level that is less than 3 or 4 liters of oxygen that you are taking in and breathing in. And I was at 15 liters, and that's how much oxygen I required at once. It was higher. When I first come in, it was much higher than that. And then come down to 15. And that's where you start thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make it or not, because it wasn't coming down real fast. And I had a couple of nights that it was pretty difficult breathing. One night specifically, I was probably 10 to 12 seconds before I could take a full breath of air. And if you don't think that doesn't bother you, stop and breathe once every 12 seconds. And you'll find out that that's probably 12 seconds of try and do that for 12 seconds and then do it over and over and over and over for a night. But after that night I got through, I just convinced myself I ain't dying tonight, and I just kept fighting it. You had to sleep on your stomach all the time because your oxygen levels increase if you're on your stomach because it doesn't put pressure on your lung from the back. And it's actually 2 to 3 points higher when I was on my stomach than when I was on my back, which was amazing because the nurses would come around in the middle of the night and they'd check your oxygen on your finger, and they would say, okay, we either have to reduce the oxygen supply or raise it. So I'd be looking at that thing right there, and I'd find out that if I laid on my stomach, my oxygen might get up to around 89, 90. If I laid on my back, I'd be back down around 88, 87. So I quickly learned I have to start sleeping on my stomach. I never slept on my stomach in my life. I slept on my stomach for 13 days in the hospital. And I even do today sometimes. But getting through this period of time was really stressful, especially when you have a pulmonologist walk by and he looks at you and says, there's nothing else we can do for you. I said,
that's comforting.
Yeah.
That's really comforting.
Yeah, I wanted to jump up out of the bed and thump the dude,
But you couldn't.
Well, I could get up out of bed. I'd probably have to kick him in the shin. But the idea is, and I had a chance to see this pulmonologist about 8 weeks after I was out of the hospital. And my cardiologist came in because I had congestive heart failure at the same time, and COVID attacked my heart and my lungs at the same time. So at 74, I could have very easily been one of the statistics of this guy fits the parameter of not being able to go or not being able to survive.
Right.
So I was going through this every day, and they come in and they adjusted my heart medication. They done a echocardiogram while I was in the hospital, and later on, I talked to my cardiologist. He told me, he said, Gordon, I didn't think you was going to be there. I just didn't think you was going to make it. He says, you had all the symptoms of congestive heart failure, your heart slowing down. When they checked my PVCs, premature ventricular contractions, it was just a string of them, a beat every 10, 12 seconds. And for those that don't know what that is, that's your heart giving you an extra beat, which means your heart doesn't have time to expand and compress and deliver oxygen to your system, which means it's a precursor to shutting your heart down. And he says, if we couldn't have got that stopped and corrected, he says, COVID would have beat you. So anyway.
They obviously don't know you.
No, I have fight in me first.
Sure. Sure.
And my cardiologist told me, he says, you have got a tremendous will to live. He says, and I'll tell you why I know that. He says, you're 74 and you got hit hard and you survived this thing. And my father-in-law was 74 and he was dead in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he said,
Well,
that's the difference.
Unfortunately, a lot of those stories out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of those stories out there.
Yeah.
And as I went through and as I got out of the hospital, I watched my liters of oxygen come from 15 to 11 to 9 to 8 to 6 to 5 to 4. And then when I got down to 3, my roommate, he checked out. He was down to 2 and 1.
Checked out, you mean left?
Left the hospital,
Right.
surviving. No,
Right.
not check out as dying. Check out as left. Left the hospital. And the next day, mine was down to 3 liters. And they said, well, we want to get you down to 2. And I said, send the doctors in here and talk to me. I says, what's the difference? You let people go home with 4, and you let some go home with 3. You want me to get to 2. Isn't this purely academic? I'm doing well. I'm trending well. I'm going well. And I think it's time for me just to go home. Yeah. And you know something? I convinced the doctors. They let me go home. So I was on oxygen for probably 2 months after that, and taking pills and breathing treatments every day at the house, and really slow. But after about 2 months, I went down to see the pulmonologist, and I saw the other one that had been at the bed that day, and I walked into his office and shook his hand. I said, do you remember me? He said, no, not at all. I said, I'm the guy you gave the kiss of death to 8 weeks ago. And his eyes went, wow, holy mackerel. He said, I'm sorry, but you didn't look good. Your stats, from all the stats we see, said that you ain't going to be with us. I was just trying to prepare you. But I'm so glad you're here to chew my butt out. Yeah. Because he said, obviously, you weren't leaving. And I said, no, I wasn't leaving. I said, you've done everything right, except you didn't ask me. So,
right, yeah.
And then after that, I went back and started swimming. When I went back and started swimming again, my first quarter mile was 22 minutes. From 8.5 minutes to 22 minutes. Now, swimming right now, I'm back down to 13.5 minutes, 13 minutes and 15 seconds. So I brought it back in. And something else I just discovered the other day, I'm going to set up some hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is, I heard that it's really good for COVID patients. I haven't heard that in a lot of places, but I heard it in a couple places, and I'm going to go follow that up, because I would think that's a pure oxygenation of your lungs and your body. They use it for other diseases and other illnesses and injuries. And why wouldn't it work on your lungs? I mean, that's where it lives, in your lungs. So I went down that way. And right now, I'm back flying. I'm a mission pilot for Civil Air Patrol. I was golfing. I was out in Mesquite, Nevada a couple weeks ago, golfing a couple days. And I'm back swimming, and I'm back working full time. And I've been blessed. I feel pretty good.
Good. So now, you explained to me that because you didn't go to the hospital right away, you were a little bit into this when they started doing treatments, so you weren't eligible to receive those monoclonal antibodies.
Correct.
But you did get some type of antibodies that helped turn the course for you?
Yeah, I got, my roommate and I both got what's called community blood services, or I can't remember the name exactly, but what it is blood from another patient that had COVID and survived. They've collected their antibodies, type matched it with your blood type, and they give it to you. So we had about an hour and a half and a couple of liters of antibodies from another patient that survived.
Okay.
And the anaclonal antibodies, the difference between the two, that is a synthetic manufacture of antibodies, which is more consistent. And we had the ones that was produced by another human body. And we think it did help. The doctors thought it helped. They said most of it was done by your body, but every little bit of help
Sure.
you needed, it was there. So that's what that is.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Lesson learned there too is if you've had COVID, maybe go down to the blood donation center and give blood and let them know you've had COVID. And maybe you can help save a life.
Yeah, and the other lesson is if you know someone that's getting this thing, get them to receive the anticolonial antibodies as quickly as possible because
Yeah.
it will help him. My wife came down with COVID, and I got her into the hospital, and she got that, and she never had to go to the hospital. She didn't have any oxygen reduction in her system or anything. So it helped her out. It helped her out greatly.
Right.
She still had a lot of long-term or longer-term, body aches and things like that that kind of screw up your system from time to time, but she didn't really get a bad case of that disease.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I really appreciate you telling the story, first of all. Also really glad you're still here, but I don't think there was ever a time when I didn't think you would be, because years ago, Gordy told me, he said, when I go, I'm not going to rust out. And that absolutely would have been rusting out.
yeah.
He said, I'm going to go sliding into home going, yippee, I made it.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. So I knew this was not Gordy's way out. So.
No, I want my body to be broken, battered, and beat.
That's right.
Nothing left, can't give anymore.
Right, exactly.
Go.
So
I've had a blessed life. I've got about the maximum out of this body and brain I can get.
that's true.
I started with 10% or less. Most people come in with more.
True. Great.
Yeah, it was quite a trip. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Now, given I said that,
Yeah,
I don't have the vaccine, and I have no intention of taking the vaccine.
I understand that.
I don't believe in that, and I don't take the flu vaccine. I don't take the pneumonia vaccine, and I just, my personal opinion, my body, my choice.
Correct. And I think that's kind of the direction or kind of the feelings we both have. I am fully vaccinated. I've also had the booster, but that's my choice. And I feel that everybody should be able to make the choice for themselves to get the vaccine, to not get the vaccine. And there's a lot of people out there now that are fully vaccinated and are getting COVID. So, it's just one of those things. You make the choice, and you should be allowed to make the choice.
When I was in the hospital, I taught you build great relationships with the nursing staff, and I was at McLaren in Flint, and I'm telling you right now, they've done an awesome job of taking care of us.
Yeah.
And they had two people come in that fully vaccinated, and they both died within a week.
Right.
Yeah. So between that and all the other stories I hear, the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting it, doesn't stop you from transmitting it. Okay, where is that benefit that I'm supposed to be getting? So anyway, but I still believe in personal choice.
Yes, exactly.
I put a presentation together for the Civil Air Patrol because I'm the safety officer for them, and they thought it would be important that other members of the Civil Air Patrol be able to understand what this means if you should contract COVID and how your body is going to personally deal with it. So if anybody would like further information, I do not have any qualms about sharing this with anybody if it would help them. Please contact us, and I would be more than happy to get a copy of that presentation to you.
There'll be a link or a website you can download it from in the description below. While you're there, subscribe to our site. Check the little or click on the little bell that tells you every time we come out with new ones. We'd really appreciate that. So again, thank you for that. And we started a conversation, the three of us, and I say the three of us because with us tonight is also our producer, Doug Ford, working diligently behind the scenes because we're having a couple technical difficulties. But we were talking about something that's near and dear to our hearts right now, and that is the I don't know if it's 1.3, 1.5, 1.75, but the infrastructure bill. And it kind of came up because the last podcast we did was around the time that they were doing the stimulus package. So we started that conversation, and then we decided, wait a minute, let's record that, because too many good things actually come out, and then you go, why didn't we record that?
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting, John. The one thing we know for sure is, and it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or if you're middle of the road, it just doesn't care anymore. And I can tell you right now, they don't care anymore. Every president's been in office for the last 3 or 4 sessions has spent $5 trillion of your money and my money. And we're at what, 28 to 30 trillion dollars upside down. I doubt seriously we'll ever be able to recover that. And I think the latest round from our current president is 1.2 trillion. And it's just amazing how most people think the answer is spend more money. Well, all the talking heads I listen to, the financial advisors, they've been warning us for a year and a half, 2 years. This is not going to end well.
Well, yeah, they have, but quite frankly, the experts have been warning us for dozens of years that the debt's getting too big. One of the items that we picked on a little bit was the 50 million barrels of
Oil.
oil.
Yeah, the strategic oil reserves that President Biden decided to release to help with gas prices. I listened to a radio show the other day, and they said 50 million barrels of oil will reduce the price of gas, maybe a nickel, for maybe somewhere around 2.6 days. They said, so this move by President Biden to reduce the oil or to reduce the gas price is more about a perception of him trying to do something than him and the administration actually doing something.
Right. In this country, we go through 19 billion barrel or million barrels a day. So 50 million barrels would literally only last a little over 2.5 days. That's not going to impact price of gas or our economy at all. I will say, and you have to agree with me here, if it goes well, the infrastructure bill could help both of us.
It could help both.
We're in the infrastructure business.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
You know, as much as I hate to say that, because I'd be more in favor of not doing this because we don't need to add more money to the debt. But by the same token, it is something that could benefit our business.
It would benefit our businesses, but there's a lot of other things that benefit our businesses as well.
Sure.
And not spend the money.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So it's kind of interesting to see the administrations, each one's take on it and how they approach the problems and whether they live, die, or fail on this. I think the president's ratings are at the lowest they've ever been. And that's not good.
No.
Not good for the country, not good for anybody, quite frankly.
Yeah.
When they start losing faith, things go sideways.
Yeah, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
You know, this is when faith, hope, charity, all that stuff should be at its highest. And right now, I think for many reasons, it's at its lowest. But that doesn't mean we have to participate in that behavior. We can actually be positive and help turn things around a little bit.
Yeah, and looking forward to that. We're going to be bringing in some other speakers that we're starting to line up. One's going to be an expert on guns and antiques, and he'll probably bring in some stuff. We're going to be doing some video shows with him. And another gentleman is a gentleman by the name of Mike Alt, and Mike is a retired AT&T executive, and he has some pretty darn sharp perspectives on the world and what's happening. And eventually we're going to open up it for calls. If you want to call us in and get on a line, or if you want to zoom in, maybe 3 or 4 of you can zoom in, we can have a roundabout. So it's going to be an exciting show by the
Yeah.
two old guys.
Right.
And we're not afraid to take it to the mat with any of you.
No,
We're not professing to be experts, but we will talk about it.
and we do have one guest coming, probably within the next month. That is, we tout him as being the lone Republican on the East Coast of this country, and we're going to bring him in and get some of his opinions and talk to him a little bit. And I say the lone Republican, but he's really he's Republican, but I'm going to call him an independent because he's got opinions from both sides that he shares, and I'd like to get his thoughts on some of the things that we're going through the country today. And you mentioned the gentleman who's familiar with guns and antiques. That was antique guns. Just to clarify,
Yeah.
He's not an antique guy.
No.
But he does do antique guns, and we're not sure if we're going to do that here in the studio or if we're going to do that maybe at one of the gun ranges or one of the local gun shops or something like that. So we'll keep you posted on that. It is that time of the year, as I said, and we are actually doing this on Thanksgiving Eve because we're both so busy that it's hard to find time to do it. And it's going to coordinate our calendars and our producer, Doug Ford's calendar as well.
And besides, I took some time off trying to die.
Yeah, true. So I'm going to ask this question.
Okay.
On the eve of Thanksgiving, tell me what you're thankful for.
I tell you right now, I'm thankful for a lot of things. When you stare death in the face, you get a different perspective on life. I've been truly blessed. I've been able, I actually am looking to help other people do something positive.
Right.
I mean, I've worked hard. I've worked for everything I've got. And I just think that being thankful for family and friends and loved ones and for the ability to do what I do. I sat right there and I was talking to my wife the other night. I said, I'll be 75 years old in 60 days. I'm a mission pilot for the Civil Air Patrol. I fly one of the state-of-the-art glass panel airplanes and command a crew. I play golf. I work in a professional engineering firm, managing a bunch of very sharp people designing fiber optic networks all over the United States. How can you ask to be blessed any more than that? And I've got great friends around me and families, and they supported me. I am thankful for a ton of things.
I believe it. For myself, I'm glad that you recognize that you have great friends.
I'm talking to Doug.
Oh, sorry. No, I have, first of all, a deep faith, and I'm glad there's a God, and I'm glad He smiles on me every day, because I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am. So I am eternally thankful for my wife, who supports me in everything. At one point in my career, when I was thinking about leaving one job and opening my own business, she said, I don't care if I have to live in a box, I'd rather you be happy than not. And that's a wonderful thing. My family, the people that I work with are the best people on the planet, bar none. I wouldn't change any of them for the people that they are. And for my friends, just
Lifelong friends.
yeah, exactly.
We've
So
been through a lot together.
again, thankful for a lot of things, and hope to be around for another 100 years to
I
continue.
hope not.
I'll probably be bald if I am.
What do you mean?
Oh, sorry.
Pete.
All right, fine.
Oh my God.
Okay,
Anyway,
yes.
when's our next podcast?
Before Christmas.
Okay.
I don't have a date picked out, but before Christmas, because our East Coast correspondent, our lone Republican on the East Coast, is chafing at the bit. We just, tonight was not a good time for him, but we will definitely get that scheduled. And again, if you've clicked that little notification thing, you'll know exactly when it's posted. So thank you for putting up with us tonight, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.
Absolutely. And this is Gordy Caverly signing off. I'm one of the two old guys.
Thank you, and thanks to our producer, Doug Ford.
Have a good night.